Hi everyone and welcome to Global Azure Norway. My name is Torstein Nikolaisen and I'm part of the Norwegian .NET user group who are organizing this event today. And I will be your host for this session. And without further ado, here's our speaker for this session, Jonah Andersson. The stream is yours.
Yes, hi, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning into our session today. And today I will be talking about Microsoft Azure Service Bus, an introduction for it, and a technical overview that is useful even for the beginners of this technology. And let me start by introducing myself. Who am I? I am Jonah Andersson. I am a software developer at Forefront Consulting, an IT consulting company here, based here in Sweden. And on my work days, I code full stack development, mainly in C Sharp .NET, and also enjoy developing technologies in Microsoft Azure. And during my free time, I like to do voluntarily mentorship in several women in tech community here in Sweden and internationally. And I also like sharing knowledge about Azure and gender diversity. I am a founder of a new local user group called Azure User Group Sundsvall. And on my free time, I like reading books, spending time with dog training, my Belgian Malinois, and also play some chess. So if you like playing chess, you can ping me and let's play. And let me start my talk by sharing you a bit about communication. So communication is a very vital rule, is very vital today, especially in the times of COVID or Corona, where everyone has to communicate and collaborate online. So communication is important because it is critical. It can be critical and it can be prioritized. But my point here is that there are two types of communication: one-way and two-way communication. Both of them are important, but depending on the priority of it, we don't want to be getting this error message, failure message. It's because sometimes we need to send important message, and sometimes we need to send a one way message that doesn't require any response right away. But sometimes we need to get a response right away, and we don't want to end up like this a man who broke his computer because he didn't get his message sent, and probably he's also having his last minute time on a Friday at work. So my point here is that we are hoping that in this session you will be able to learn the basics and fundamentals on how Microsoft Azure Service Bus can solve your cloud messaging problems in your applications. So my plan for today is I will be sharing the basic what Azure Service Bus is, the features, what is a namespace, Service Bus queue, what's the difference between Service Bus queues and Azure storage queues, and also topics and subscriptions, which is one of the Azure Service Bus feature. And hopefully, if time permits, at the end of the session, I want to share short demos and some learning resources. So, Microsoft Azure have a lot of services, many services that are great, and there are also a group of cloud messaging services that are available for us in Microsoft Azure. And these are the known as of date are the cloud messaging services that are available for Microsoft Azure users. And what we have here is we have the Service Bus, we have the Event Grid, Event Hubs, Azure Relay, we have Queue Storage, Azure Signal or HD Insight, Notifications Hub, and also the Azure IoT Hub. But today we will be focusing about the fundamentals and some technical basics of Service Bus. And there's a there's a common trend of asking what's the difference between these three. For example, what's the difference between Service Bus, Event Grid, and Event Hubs? So Service Bus is a durable brokered messaging service in the cloud, which means that there's a broker or mediator between the relay of messages from the sender and receiver. While Event Hubs, it's commonly advisable to use it for HTTP event routing and real-time notification. And for Event Hubs, you can use Event Hubs for if you have large scale and massive scalable telemetry that requires buffered storage. So those are, even though the description of the tree are kind of like similar, these are like the key points that we can consider and which one to choose. And so what is Azure Service Bus? It is a cloud messaging service in Azure that is asynchronous. It is a durable brokered messaging service. It is a brokered messaging service means that your message has a broker, which means, for example, a queue is a broker. Or example is that when you're selling a piece of property to someone, if you're trying to sell your property, you have like a broker. So it's kind of like the Azure Service Bus can be used as a brokered messaging service. And point-to-point messaging means is that you can use the first in, first out method messaging type for queue in which you have an order of an order or sequence of your messages, and public subscribe messaging feature, which you can have the one to many messaging features like public newsletter subscription. And Azure Service Bus is a platform as a service, which means that you as the user of this service don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructures behind this service. So the cloud service provider like Microsoft Azure take care of it for you. And it is fully managed enterprise messaging broker because you can manage this service directly on the Azure portal, which means that you can have people in your team managing this service without having technical background, because you have everything in one place, like Azure monitoring, statistic, and logs in the Azure portal for this service. So what are the three main benefits of Azure Service Bus? It's good for load balancing workers, and it is also good for beneficial for data transfer and safety of your data transfer and routing, and coordination of your transactional work. And why do we consider Azure Service Bus? It's because of three words: reliability, scalability, and security, which means that you can send a synchronous, reliable message that you can scale, and it is also secured. So advanced features in Azure Service Bus are used to solve complex cloud messaging problems. For example, message session, first in, first out, which means that you can have your messages like the standard first in, first out method in which you can have them in order. And you also have the feature called auto forwarding that change a queue or a function to another queue or a topic. And in order to do auto forwarding from a queue to a topic, it should both of them, the queue and the topic, should be in the same namespace. And what is a namespace? I will be going through that in details later. And dead letter queue is like a sub queue that is within the Azure Service Bus queue that allows that automatically save the messages that were not delivered to the receiver in a special sub queue. So this feature is good if you want to inspect those messages first, those messages that didn't went through, and handle it later on. And schedule deliver, which means that you can choose which messages that you want to deliver on schedule. So next one is message deferral. So you can choose to defer your message before sending it, and this is ideal for workflows. So this is specific to that. And client-side batching. Side batching means that you have the option, the client side of both the queue and the topic. You have the option to send the messages by batch on a certain time frame. So that is a good feature as well. And filtering in actions. This is specific to topics. For example, you can filter using your SQL filter and correlation filter. So you can filter which messages that you want to send to the subscriber based on the topic that they are subscribed to, for example. And auto delete and idle. So you can assign auto deletion upon a specific idle time or interval. So there are certain scenarios maybe that this is useful in your messaging service. And I think duplicate detection is also one of the great features of this cloud service, because regardless if we're working with Service Bus or not, we developers or we that works in the IT world, we don't want duplicates in our data. So I myself as a developer believes in data integrity. And I've also worked with correcting data because of duplication. So because in the past, so I believe that this is a powerful feature to be able to duplicate which messages that are sent to the queue are the same as the previous one. And security protocols. The security protocols provided or supported by Azure Service Bus are a few of them. It supports shared access signatures, role-based RBAC, and managed identities for Azure resources. And of course, the geo disaster recovery that we have as in other Azure services in case something happens in our data centers or the downtime. Okay, so next are the supported libraries. Azure Service Bus supports .NET, Java, and GMS, a Java messaging service. Probably there's more other features. I haven't checked the latest supported libraries, but these are the top few of them. And you also have the capability to integrate your service bus with other Azure services like the Event Grid, Logic Apps, Azure Functions. So in Azure Functions, there's a service bus queue trigger, and there's also a topic trigger. So you can make your service bus serverless as well, and it can be integrated with Dynamic 365 and Azure Stream Analytics. And as for the security protocol, these are the protocols that are used by Azure Service Bus. It's the Advanced Message Queuing Protocol, the HTTP, and the SMB Service Bus Messaging Protocol. The namespace. The namespace is vital in Service Bus. It's like a scoping container. for the service bus. As you can see in this example, there's the namespace is like a container for your queue, for example, where your app, which is, for example, a message sender client, it can be a web app, a mobile app, or a service, sends the message into the queue, and that queue should be in a namespace. And in a namespace, you can also have several queues, several topics, and it's your queue that forwards those messages to the message receiver clients depending on when it is retrieved. So it's kind of like store in the queue in the cloud. So creating a namespace is necessary in getting started with this. And as for the basics, practical things like the pricing, when you create an account or set up an Azure Service Bus in Azure, we have three options: the basic, the standard, and the premium. Unfortunately, the basic is so basic you cannot do both the queues and the topic. But for the standard, which is kind of like good one, you have the option to create both the queues and the topic. And if you want a dedicated capacity, for example, and more other features, you can use the premium. But it has fixed pricing, and you get other features as well, the premium features. And in order to get an idea exactly, or not exactly, but the estimate of how much you would have to pay for a service bus based on your requirements, business requirements, then I would recommend to make use of the Azure pricing calculator, which allows you to estimate and calculate some of your services, and you can combine it with Azure Service Bus, or if you want to integrate it with Event Hubs or with Azure Functions, you can calculate it in this site too. And so there are two parts of Azure Service Bus. So there's the queue and the topic and subscription. So the first one is the Azure Service Bus queue, and a service bus queue is like it acts as a message broker, where we can store the message from the sender, and then the receiver retrieve it from the cloud. And a queue is an entity for storing message, and it is asynchronous. And there is also a service called Azure Storage Queues. And what's the difference between both of them? I mean, what's the difference between them and when to use what? And here are the differences. So, for example, the storage. If you need a great storage like 80 gig, then it's probably ideal to use storage queues. But of course, there are other parameters too. But if you, for example, in Service Bus, it has great features too, like guaranteed first in, first out delivery, the duplicate detections, and the other advanced features that I mentioned earlier. They're also good. So there are certain things, best practices, and technical considerations that are worth checking out in details before choosing Service Bus queues. And I believe the Service Bus queues have more features, like the duplicate detection and the authentication options here. So next is that development. So if you want to get started in developing Azure Service Bus, you would need to have an Azure subscription and an admin role for that. So, and the programming languages that are supported are .NET, Java, Python, JavaScript, PHP, Ruby. And code editor. I see that I misspelled it. A code editor, Visual Studio, VS Code, and some IDE depending on the language that you have chosen to code your service bus with your apps. And depending on what you're creating, queue or topics, you can use Azure Portal, Azure PowerShell, Azure CLI, and ARM template. Topics and subscription, the topics and subscriptions service, I think they only support, I don't think they support ARM template. So it's worth checking which of them are applicable. And as for the Service Bus SDK, there are different versions. For example, the Windows Azure Service Bus was the old version. And the one that is recent and current today, as of today, is the Azure Messaging Service Bus. And this is multi-platform already. So if you're going to start developing with Service Bus, I recommend that you use the latest version because it has all the updates and the features for this service. And next type of Azure Service Bus is topics and subscription. Topics is a one-way publish subscribe messaging communication model. Just like here you have a sender and you send a message and you have different topics and different subscriptions. And the good thing about the difference between topics and queues is that topics uses it is similar it's similar to queue because it has a broker. The topic serves like a broker, but the difference is that you can filter the received messages in topics and subscription depending on what the subscriber topic has subscribed to. So just like the real life example is like when we're subscribing to a newsletter, we only subscribe to the topics that we want to receive in our mail. And if we're tired of it, we can just unsubscribe, and hopefully that works and we don't get too much spam. So it's something like that. I think you kind of got a grip of it. And here is an example, simple scenario for topics. So a web app, message sender, that could be a web app, mobile app, or a service. And any of them can send a message to a topic. And of course, a topic should be in its logical, in its scoping container, a namespace. And each topic can have different subscriptions. And the receiver can receive the messages based on the subscription or the topic that they're subscribed to. And here is a quick overview of an example that I got on serverless360.com. It is like everything, the queues and topic in one application or integrated together. It's a vehicle telematics application. It's a booking application for car, I believe. And here is a service bus queue, and this is a topic, and it's integrated with Azure Functions and Event Hubs, Event Grid. So this is an example of a real life use case. And if you want to check the details, it's on this website, serverless360.com. And I will be doing some short demo. Let's see. So the demo is about showing you a bit how it looks on Azure Portal and a few examples of a console app in .NET Core for Service Bus Queue and topic. So let me just switch to my Azure Portal. So here I have my So here I have a namespace. I have a resource group and a namespace that I created already for demo purposes. It's called Jonah Global Azure Demo. And in here, I created, in order to create a queue or topic, I had to sign up for the standard pricing tier. So if I want to create a queue, I could do that, set a name in that, the max size here, it's from 1 gig to 5 gig. And max delivery count, here you can set from values 1 to 2,000. And the time to leave, you can set here also the lock duration. And here are the features, advanced features that I mentioned earlier. If you want to enable the auto delete, duplicate detection, did lettering on expiration, and also partitioning. Partitioning is a feature in which you can partition a queue across multiple message brokers, and it can be enabled depending if you have that need in your application. And then session allows you to do a session or work with a session in your queue for first in, first out delivery. And you can also forward, you can also use forward the messages to the queue or topic if you want. And this is how it looks on Azure. So we have the entities here. So I created one entity called Global Azure Demo Service Bus Demo Bus Queue. And here right now I have the special part of this queues interface or dashboard right now is for the demo purposes is the message count. So since I haven't set up any scheduled and dead letter features in my application yet, we gonna focus on the active messages that is currently on the queue. And I will be showing you the code now. See. So here in my Visual Studio, I have Visual Studio 2019, and I'm using C# as a programming language in .NET Core 3.1. I have several projects here that I'm building and setting up, not yet done, but I have a message queue sender, and in here I have a program.cs, an app config, and a list of names some that I randomly generated. And what I plan to do is that I'm gonna use the Azure Service Bus queue to send a single message to the queue, and also send a greeting message to all the names in this list, in this text file. So I will be reading the data from the text. And let's see. So I have two methods in my main asynchronous main async. I have send message, single message, and I'm also gonna try to send batch message, like several messages or greetings to the people in the name list and welcome them to the event today. So in my send async message, I have a try catch. First, I'm gonna be I will be using the Service Bus client, and here on the top, I'm using the SDK, Azure Messaging Service Bus, the latest that we have as of today. And here I sent my connection string as a parameter in my Service Bus client, and I create an instance for the sender, and sending in my the name of my queue, which we have, which I already set up in Azure Portal. And then I created a hard-coded message to say, "Hello world, welcome to Global Azure 2021." And I'm gonna save that message as a I'm gonna have it as a service bus message, which is built in this SDK. And I will have an async, I will be calling send a message async and log to inform me if that message was sent to the queue. So if we check our portal now, I have 0 active messages, and I will be running this queue sender. And I will just wait for my final message. So it took like 1, 2, 3 seconds, a few minutes, a few seconds. I didn't even had time to switch the console, but I see here I got a note. I got my log that I sent a single message to my queue, and I also sent a batch of 25 message greetings to all the names in this text file to the same queue. So I should be expecting 25 messages in my queue. So if we go to our Azure portal and our service bus queue and click on refresh, here we see that we have 25 messages that are active. And these messages are going to stay on the cloud or stay in the queue until we have a receiver client that retrieves it. So what I have here is another application called message sender queue sender message queue receiver, and it is also a simple one. I have a connection to a connection string, and I also set my queue name. And I only have one method for the receiving. It's to receive the messages async. I'm gonna get all of them at once. And here I also use the service bus client, and this time it's kind of different. I use the service bus processor and sends in my queue name and the service bus processor options. And in my options, I can add in the message handler, a handler to process the messages, and also a queue error handler to handle the errors. And when it's done, it's gonna start processing and log it. But I will go into how the message queue handler looks like. So it calls the method complete a message async to delete that message from the queue once it's already retrieved or received by the receiver client application. And if something goes wrong, and then the error a handler handles it and complete the task. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna start this queue receiver, and what it should be doing, the receiver client should be printing out the messages from Azure. And it's my computer is hanging. Wait, let's see. Let me try. Let's try again. It should work in my computer, otherwise it's not working. Wait. There. So here, I hope you see it. So here are the messages that I got, I retrieved from the Azure Service Bus queue. So so it's printed, and I can handle it in my application in any way I want. And if we double check how the count of the active messages, we will see that this one should be gone here. It should be 0. So here we can see also the metrics of the event, or what was happening through Azure monitoring in one place. I think my Azure is longsome or slow right now. Okay. But anyway, well, it's before I show you how it looks on the logs. So that was an example of a message queue, receiver, sender, and receiver. And I wanted to show you also how to code the topic sender. So if we're gonna implement the topic feature, so you would need your Azure's Service Bus connection string and the name of your Service Bus topic. And here I created a method to send a single message to a topic, and also the same way as I did with the queue, as multiple batch of messages from the text file. And the difference here is that you actually use the difference here is that you use the Service Bus client, and you use the sender class to send the message to the topic. And if you send it by batch, for example, if you send multiple messages as to the topic, you would need to create the messages and also start a batch, an async batch, and you can use the method called try add message if you want to do some error handling and make sure that you don't get an error. So it's good to have try add instead of just adding the message. And in case something happens, then you can log the error, and also the topic also there's a while loop that keeps checking if there are messages that are still coming in the topic queue. So, and let's see, and this receiver also looks like this. It has the service bus processor, and it also has the handler and the error handler. So just like the queue. And let's see if my Azure is already working. All right, so here you can see the different monitoring that you can make use of if you want to look for data that you want to have for your Azure Service Bus. And let's see what else. There's also an Azure Service Bus Explorer that is currently in preview, that you can actually send a test message from the Azure portal. For example, if I'm gonna say hello globe, and see and send it. It's like a user interface without a code. You can receive it, and then you can choose if you want to perform a destructive receive, or you can pick it. And here, when I receive it, you will see the message, Hello Global Azure and some of its broker properties that you can also use to handle advanced features, and that should be gone in the queue. Uh, in the queue. So that's all about my demo today, and I hope you learned something. And this is just the demo that I showed is just like the basics one that is can be useful for, especially for the beginners or developers that are getting started with Azure Service Bus. But Microsoft has a great documentation about Azure Service Bus, how to quick start, the basic concepts, and the languages that are supported, and how to use it with PowerShell and Azure CLI. And I also challenge you to take the Microsoft Learn modules learning path for Azure Service Bus. And some GitHub examples, it's in Microsoft Azure's GitHub for Service Bus. And there are links here in how to like information and comparison with the different messaging services aside from the one that I mentioned. And so, to summarize, you have learned the basics and technical concepts of Azure Service Bus, and hopefully it will help you get started and learn more and improve or develop it more in your apps, in your applications. And hopefully you won't be able to get frustrated and be happy like this man after he received his message because of the help of Service Bus. And if you need to contact me for a copy of the code or just the presentation, feel free to scan this code. And thank you so much, tack så mycket, and thank you so much for Global Azure for having me here today. And also, I would like to share this swag or learner badge. So feel free to scan this code if you want to get your learner badge for attending this session today. 30 days to learn it enabled is also a good resource, and check out the links here as well. And tomorrow I will be doing a lightning talk about how I use Microsoft Azure for continuous learning and development. So if you have time in the Philippines session tomorrow, you can also check it out. So that's it. Thank you so much for listening.
All right. Thank you very much, Jonah, both for the great session and contributing to Global Azure Norway. I think that was a great session, and I found it really informative. I think it's a great kind of entry-level introduction to Service Bus for those that want to kind of get started. We are now in the Q&A session part of the session, so let's see if there are any questions. Nope, doesn't seem to be any questions, so your presentation was obviously crystal clear. But I have a couple of questions that I'm wondering about. First one is, what's your favorite and least favorite thing about Azure Service Bus?
Yeah, that's a good question. The my favorite part was the dead letter queue, the feature that if something happens or if you cannot deliver the message, there's that sub queue that's available that you can later on handle. Who knows, you might have missed a special or important message that you want to handle later on. And the next feature that I want is the next feature that I like is the duplicate detection. That's also good. And the disadvantage or the negative part is that I cannot come up with something, but I wish that aside from the Azure Service Bus queue trigger, I wish that there is a way to fully integrate Azure Service Bus with durable functions. So I'm kind of working on finding a way to do that, because I also believe in the power of serverless, and And Service Bus is a platform as a service, and serverless is function as a service. You see the conflict there. So it's kind of like I'm trying to find a way, if there's a way to use Azure functions with the durable functions, and a Service Bus with the durable functions.
I have another question. You mentioned that when you kind of send messages to Azure Service Bus, it kind of saves them. Are you charged for Azure keeping those messages while they're waiting to be processed?
You are not charged for the storage of keeping those messages, but there's a limitation or a limit for the number there's a limit for the messages for that. So, for example, the number of message capacity depending on the subscription. So if you go beyond that limit, then you can be charged for that. For example, if you go beyond the limit of the basic or the standard. So that's it. But
Okay.
basically you don't get the charge for storage.
And a final question. Do you know if it's possible to migrate Azure Service Bus namespace to another Azure subscription?
Yes, it is possible to migrate the Azure Service Bus namespace to another subscription, and you can use or do that using Azure Portal, or you can also use the Azure PowerShell commands. And to know the exact details of the command, the Azure PowerShell commands, it's actually in the documentation as well. So it's possible.
All right. I'm not sure if there are any more questions now.
I think we have I'm on the stream as well. There's someone.
Yeah. Håkan, can you pose a question? Yeah. So the question is, I'm new to IT world and trying to pick up a programming language. Which programming language do you recommend to start with? Or which programming language has the least learning curve?
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting question. Yeah. Thank you, Mitesh, for your questions. Yeah, I like inspiring people to go to tech. But to answer your question, it really depends. For me, I'm a Microsoft developer, so I prefer a C#, and I also like Microsoft Azure, which is perfect with the Microsoft environment. But picking the right programming language, it really depends on what you want to work with. For example, if you're new to programming and you want to work back end or front end, then I suggest that if you want to work with front end, then research the top front end development languages that are on trend today, as well as the back end languages. So you can do that. But if you want to work full stack, then it's good to learn the basic of both. But it is enough that you master one language, and it will be easier to master other languages. So just keep learn by doing, and don't give up if you suffer, if you encounter some complex problems, because it's just a way to learn new things and improve as a programmer. So I hope that it inspires you or answers your question.
Right, good answer. So I think that was our last question. So I think we'll start preparing for our next session.
Yes.
That session starts in about 10 minutes. That is 6 o'clock sharp Norwegian time. And we will then hear Katrine Wilhelmsen and her presentation named Pipelines and Data Flows, Introduction to Data Integration in Azure Synapse Analytics. So I'll see you all in a little while. And again, thank you, Jonah, for a great talk, and goodbye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.